Hi, I'm Elaine Weir of CV Friends Limited, a CV writing company that specialises in writing CVs and LinkedIn profiles for senior managers, executives, and people in other leadership positions. So I'm here today to give you a very quick lesson in some things that you can do to lift your CV. So I find quite often with my clients, they will come to me and tell me that they feel like they're being ignored. Their CV isn't gaining any traction. They're not getting interviews. And I work with them to really understand them as much as I can about them. And then I write the CV. And what I want to do today is to just take you through some of the tips that I use when I'm writing CVs to help you give your own CV a lift. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is knowing the role you want, knowing what you want to do. You can't write a CV if you actually don't know what you want it to do for you. So if you don't know the role you want, the industry that you want to work in, you're going to try and create a CV that's not focused on anything. And when you do that, you're kind of demonstrating that you're a jack of all trades. But when the recruiting manager reads it, you come across quite clearly as a master of none. You must know what role you want. So if you don't know what that next step looks like for you, take a little bit of time and a little bit of breathing space just to work it out, to think about what floats your boat and where you want to be. When you've done that and you know what you want to do your research. So you'll have heard people talk time and time again about you must tailor your CV for every single role. And what I find people are doing is rewriting their CV every single time a job comes up. That's not sustainable. It's draining and it's soul destroying, especially if you write it every time and then you're ignored. So my process is know the role you want and then do your research. What are they looking for? What are recruiting managers looking for that role right now? What's hot, what's not? What language are they using? And you pull all that together and you map out the key themes, skills, and experience. And what you're in essence doing is going to create an ideal role profile for the role you want. And you are going to target your CV at that. And when you do that, you'll create what I call a foundation CV. And if you get that research right, when a role comes up that floats your boat, the tailoring you have to do becomes tweaking, not a rewriting of a whole CV. You can just tweak it a bit to get you to where you want to be, and you don't have to rewrite it. And that's the step that so many people miss. They don't stop and say, what do I want? And how do I create that targeted foundation CV so that I don't have to keep tailoring it so heavily every time I see a role? The other thing I want you to do is just take a little bit of time to think about your USP. You know the role you want. Why should somebody give you that job? What stands you out from the crowd? Why should I recruit you over another candidate? What are you bringing to the table? And think about trying to get that into almost like a 2-sentence USP statement. And then you can use that in your profile statement at the top of your CV. Keywords. I'm sure if you've done any work on CVs and you've looked into writing your own CV, you've heard people talk about keywords. It's just language. It's the language that recruiters are using to describe the roles. So for example, if you're in customer experience, okay, and they're talking about customer service, don't talk about customer care, talk about customer service. It's literally the language that they're using. So all you need to do is look at and that's where the tweaking for each individual role might come in. Is it just the odd word? Now don't stuff your CV full of keywords because it won't flow. Okay, it doesn't need to mention customer service 25 times. A couple of times is good in a place where it's relevant. Okay. The other thing for CVs that I see quite often is it's not a job description. You don't need to write all of the daily tasks that you do. What you need to focus on are the standout things that you did. And if you're sitting there saying to yourself right now, I don't have any achievements, I don't know how to map those out, ask yourself this question. It's the question that I use with all my one-to-one clients and it never fails. What was different when you left the company than when you started? Okay. And what part did you play in that? And you can narrow it down and say, what was different in my department when I left than when I started? What was different in my role when I left than when I started? And follow it every time with, and what part did I play in that? And remember, when you're creating achievements for a CV, they're relative to your role, okay? So yes, metrics are great and they do make a difference to a CV. And if you can pop a couple of them in there, fantastic. But some roles just don't lend themselves to that. Don't panic. Achievements are relative to the role that you're in. So don't worry too much about trying to find and create measurable metrics if there's not a natural fit with the role you're doing. Now let's have a quick chat about formatting and layout. Make it easy to read. Always in your mind, think about the person that has to read your CV. How can you make it really easy for them? So one of my favorite things is my CVs only have one column. You know, sometimes you see those CVs where they've got a narrow column down the left or the right hand side. If you are a recruiter and you've got one of those, where do you look? The small column? The other bit? It's not so easy, is it, when you want to just quickly scan to get the information? So I like to create a very simple CV, but with the words that pack punch, that really sell you into every single role that you're looking at. So make it easy to read, keep your formatting simple, I prefer a sans serif font, Calibri is my go-to, size 11, size 12, definitely not size 9. That means that you've tried to squeeze it down. Okay, make it easy for them to read, don't make them squint. So sans serif fonts, size 11, size 12, Times New Roman, definitely not. Don't go with Times New Roman. It ages your CV immediately, okay? And then the other thing that I would suggest is don't vomit rainbows and diagrams all over the page. Let the words talk for themselves. Let somebody be easy to read. Somebody can scan it. Do you know, make it really easy for them. Make it accurate. Microsoft Word editor is fantastic for that. Get somebody else to read it. The biggest thing I find on a CV to make sure there's no repetition and to pick up any final errors is read the whole thing from beginning to end out loud. You'll be surprised the perspective you get on how it flows, whether any words are repeated, and whether you've got any spelling or grammatical errors. Finally, Ats Systems, applicants tracking systems, the candidate's nemesis, or so you're told. They're not. Don't worry about them, forget about them. If you create a simple, straightforward CV and you use the language, the keywords, you won't have a problem with an Ats system. They're not something that you need to worry about. And I firmly believe that they're they're used as a selling tactic by unscrupulous CV writers. It's one of the things about my industry I don't like. So don't worry about them. Don't get in a pickle, okay? Just write your CV. Now, finally, should you 2-page or not 2-page? My theory on this is that your CV should be as long as it needs to be, bearing in mind you're not doing a rewrite of Tolstoy's War and Peace. So if you creep over onto 3 pages, don't worry about it. What you don't want to do is strip it back so far to squeeze it on 2 pages that you're either using font size 0.9 or you've lost your message and you're back to being ignored and there's no interviews. Okay, so let's just recap. Know where you want to go, do the research, create that really strong foundation CV, you take the pressure off all of the tailing. Use the keywords, use the language that the recruiters are using. It's not a job description. What was different than when you started and what part did you play? Formatting, simplicity works best to make it really easy for the recruiter to read. Accuracy, 100% every single time. Do not vomit rainbows and diagrams over the page. And Ats systems are not the candidate's nemesis. Now, head off and create yourself a fantastic CV. If you want a little bit more information or you need to reach out, you can find me on LinkedIn and the website cvfriends.co.uk.